everyone. I'm Baroness Floella Benjamin, lover of all things bright and beautiful and fighter for children's well-being, like Annabelle, and for a better world for people like Annabelle and the 300 children who wrote those messages on those birds. It's a real joy to welcome you to this silver anniversary celebration. Yes, as you've heard, it was 25 years ago when 850 children from 92 countries came together in Eastbourne here in England to discuss their concerns about the destruction of the natural environment. This extraordinary and pioneering event, initiated by children, was made possible by adults who wanted to make a difference and listen to children's voices, the way we have done to you, Annabelle. It was a tremendous achievement at the time when very few people were really taking the erosion of our natural environment seriously. The event drew huge international attention. It showed how a small town on the south coast of England, Eastbourne, could punch above its weight. The young delegates shared and discussed their concerns about the destruction of the natural habitats, animal cruelty, poor air quality, increasing waste through non-recycling packaging, and the over-reliance on the car. They produced a series of challenges to tackle these issues, 26 of them directed at governments of the world, led by adults in positions of power. They challenged those adults to use their influence to reverse decisions negatively impacting on the environment and the welfare of animals and their inhabitants. 25 years on, the voice of children and young people has got louder, more forceful, inspired by the courage of Greta Thunberg. What hasn't changed is a call to have their concerns addressed by the adults who govern on their behalf. We all know the children are the future, like Annabelle, they're the future. And I always say childhood lasts a lifetime. You'll remember this moment, Annabelle, and all the children who made those birds will remember this moment. And it's our responsibility as adults to teach them well, to set out an example so that they can lead the way in the future. We are their guardian angels. The future depends on what we do for them. So we adults have to see the future through the eyes of the child, as if it was for the first time, to see what they are seeing, as we saw on those birds, which is air pollution, plastic invasion of the ocean, species extinction, global warming, the list goes on and on and on. The earth is crying out, but it's not too late to halt or reverse this and comfort our world. It's the only one we have. Some might believe we can save the human race by traveling to another planet. But scientifically, that would take thousands of years, and we haven't got that time. Anyway, why leave this miraculous planet when we have everything we need right here? So how can we save the planet? You know, I was glad at the news of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, because the Americans is pivotal in fighting global warming. Not only are they a huge producer of carbon emissions and consumers, but they have the technology, resources, and innovation to make a difference and lead the world by example. And I'm pleased to say that we have people with us who are leading in the world in the same way. Yes, we're very fortunate this evening to have an eminent group of people to discuss how we save this wounded world and the role of the adult as the gatekeeper of the natural world, to consider what needs to be done to ensure children are given the opportunity to interact with the decision-making process and the skills and encouragement we need to conserve our beautiful world. So now I'd like to ask each one of our eminent guests, and I'm dying to hear what they're going to say after seeing that presentation by you, Annabelle. I want to ask them now to introduce themselves and to tell us a little bit about who they are and why they feel an event like this is so important to celebrate this evening. First of all, I'd go to my dear friend who I've known for many years, way before the Eden Project came off the ground, because he came to us as doing a Millennium Commission, asking for money to build his wonderful project. And he's a visionary. I'm so pleased that you're here with us, Tim. Let's hear your views, and please introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. My name's Tim Smit from the Eden Project in Cornwall and also the Lost Gardens of Heligan. The reason I'm participating in this is actually, put bluntly, I met Rafe and Antonia, and they were so darn persuasive that I decided I'd go to Eastbourne, a town I hadn't visited for 30 years. And they bowled me over, and they introduced me to lots and lots of people, all of whom seemed to be excited about the future of Eastbourne. So we decided we'd get involved. Now, the Eden project itself has had 21 million, I think, up till last week, visitors in under 20 years. And we have had a moment of crisis because we realize that we are very, very popular, and we keep being popular, which is great. But ultimately, we were built, as Floella knows, because we were meant to make a difference. And we've become very unconvinced that just attracting 1.1 million visitors a year that make us a surplus and all of that is actually adequate. And we've also realized that an awful lot of people call us visionaries and geniuses and all of this sort of stuff. And it's dawned on us that we've actually believed our own vain hopes. And we've realized that the reason we're so brilliant and such geniuses is because everything else is so rubbish, and that we're only quite good. And I think the challenge that we all have is to stop talking about things like sustainability as if we could be less bad all the time. Let's go and be less bad, because actually just basic maths tells you if we're all less bad, it's still a bad eventually when it all adds up. And I'm hoping, and I hope everybody on the panel feels, that COVID, if it's done one thing that educationists haven't been able to do, it's done it really quickly too, is it's shown the whole world that we are interconnected. Now that's a great thing, a really good thing, because it means that we now know that we're weaker as separate nations. And also it tells us that maybe we've got to stop looking at narrow national politics and being consumers, and actually start to look at the world as a whole. I'll end by saying that last year I spent 2 weeks on an island 1,000 miles from the nearest habitation in the middle of the Indian Ocean, a paradise called Aldabra. You won't believe it, it's bigger than the Isle of Wight, and every inch of its coastline is covered in plastic. The nearest town of 200 people is 1,200 miles away. If that doesn't tell you that Eastbourne is not an island, nothing will. We have a chance here, though, in Eastbourne to see whether by showing a small example, everybody else will copy us. We don't have to change the world. We just got to change ourselves. That's the big message I want to get over today.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Inspirational as always. Inspirational as always. I love you. Now, I'd like to ask Mary. Mary, can you introduce yourself and tell us about why you think this evening is important?
Hello, everybody. My name's Mary Colwell. I have been a producer for television and radio, specialising in natural history, so all the documentaries you see on telly to do with wildlife. But a few years ago, I left that and I became very interested in working with world religions and how they could contribute to the environmental cause. But I also did other things. I got involved in conservation, and I did a 500-mile walk right across Britain and Ireland to try and find out why this wonderful bird called the curlew was disappearing. And I also then decided that something was missing from this mix of television, radio, conservation. And that was the voice of young people. And it seemed to me that just listening to the wonderful inspirational Annabelle there, what a wonderful hope for the future, that we're not engaging with young people on this issue anything like as much as we could, and anything like as much as we have to, and anything like as much as young people want us to. We have a wonderful country full of fantastic naturalists. We have probably the best studied country in the world. And yet our young people are not being encouraged to get sort of stuck in, get to understand the world that actually they walk through every day, that they use, that we live in. And so this idea of making natural history part of the education of the country, bring it right back into the heart of schools, became a stronger and stronger idea. And so I started campaigning for a GCSE in natural history to actually, so people could study it, make it a really important subject that young people could go to and find out, what is this tree? What is this bird? What is this snail? What's its name? How does it fit into my environment? And how does this little collection of animals and plants around me Connect me, as you've just said, Floella, to the bigger picture of the world around us, and as Tim, because we're all interconnected. But that relationship with the actual things of this planet, the actual wildlife, the environments we walk through, that's what we need to connect again. And as Annabelle has shown us, there's no shortage of desire to find out more. And so that's why I think what you're doing in Eastbourne is so good. You're starting on that journey so that we can all of us, young and old, have a real conversation with nature again, get to know each other, get to talk to each other, get to understand each other. And that's the way that we'll move into a much, much better future than where we are at the moment.